Oh man.
That was
Hey
an omen.
everybody.
That foreshadowing.
We just had like a 3-minute show without y'all. Because I forgot to click the go live button.
Oh man. Well, we had a blast.
We sure did. So
Oh gosh.
tonight is Vicky's last show. So this is her farewell send-off show. It's her last show. Vicky is moving on. She's going to focus on her writing and her ministry that the Lord has placed before her. And we're going to wish her well. We're going to keep her lifted up. And so one of her good friends, one of my sisters, and a past guest, Sarah, has joined the show to say a few words to Vicky as well, and to wish her well after dry bones. And although they talk like all the time, they like do that Marco Popo. So they do that, and so they got that. But
oh yeah.
I can't stand it. I think I had it for 3 days, and then I was like, no, I gotta get rid of this thing.
Yeah, when it first came out, I said some Scandinavian had to have invented this. This is what us introverts have been waiting for, this kind of communication for so long. It's perfect.
I was like, what's the sense in doing it, right? If you got FaceTime, you can just talk.
Yeah, no.
But then
terrible idea.
On a live basis, and yeah, no.
What it really is, it's like, let me get my point across, and you can't interrupt me. That's what it really is for. And so it probably was made by a woman, Scandinavian.
Definitely, I think a Swede was behind it. Some genius Swede, but yeah. Well, it's just nice because you have control of when your day is interrupted. You know what I mean? I realize that that's selfish, but when I work from home and I write, and a lot of people think, oh, she's at home, and it's pretty hard to work when you've got people pinging you every few minutes wanting you to watch their TikTok videos.
TikTok. I haven't been on that stupid thing yet. I think, and you know who invented it, right? It's an app from China.
Really?
Yeah, and they have all these people doing all these crazy things like licking toilet seats.
Yeah, I have some friends on it, but they're my
from Brooklyn
youth group kids, grown up friends, not 40-year-old friends.
Not youth group, not 40-year-old friends.
Yeah.
You are 40 years old, aren't you?
I will be 48 tomorrow.
48 tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know you were that old.
I am. I'm ancient.
Wow.
But I have found the fountain of youth in the cabin. I won't let out the longitude lines, but yeah, yep. The fountain of youth is in Minnesota. You just have to get through the Antifa riots to get here. So good luck.
If you can, you're going to be aged after about 3 hours with them.
That's right. If you survive the riots on Lake Street and get up here, you will live a long time.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy. It's madness. So and so because I just got back over the weekend from my 2-week, and I was blessed to see you. And last thing I need is for a plant to fall on my head. So
crazy climber.
Yeah. So I had met this homosexual in the parking lot of when I first started, and it was, of course, the way I would start off a 2-week sabbatical, I guess that's what you call it. Because it was the oddest thing ever. He was the most conservative, far right, Trump loving, tranny movement hating homosexual I'd ever met in my life. He was standing there and he was like, I went to the LGBT shop and they tried to get me to sign a petition stating that the LGBT movement must pick up the momentum of the Black Lives Matter movement, and we have to sign this petition and get on board. And I told him that they're all a bunch of crazy, because I'm like, whoa, here is this like very homosexual man, right? Just like pouring all this out to me in the parking lot just because I told him I used to be a homosexual. And he was like,
Wow.
Used to be? How'd you used to be? Thought you always had to be.
How'd you get out of the contract?
So, and that was what it was. But he was like, I love Trump. And I'm like, make America great again. And they're talking about make America gay again. And I'm telling them they're a bunch of queers and they're stupid. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And
wow.
He was just rambling on and on and on and on. And I was just standing there and I'm thinking like, Lord, really? I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
I want to go lay down.
It's kind of cool. There's this whole hashtag movement, and maybe it's been going on for years and I'm just behind the curve as usual, but on YouTube it's called the walkaway movement, and people are giving their walkaway stories, and it's not LGBT, it's people who are walking away from liberalism and the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
And there are drag queens on there, a lot of young people, lots of African Americans, these people who are culturally sort of expected to follow the main pattern, and they're finally kind of you've got all these people coming out of the closet, except it's admitting that they're conservative. But yeah, and then they have to feel culturally separated from their groups because they're going to vote differently, but it's been,
he was kind of saying too about how he's just like, he can't even have any homosexual friends, right? Because they all think that he's a sellout and they don't like him. And he can't have any heterosexual friends because they all think he's just a homo and they don't want to, be bothered with him. And so he's like, the only ones that want to be friends with him are girls, like older girls, big girls, and all they want to talk about is makeup and hair. And he's he don't want to talk about makeup and hair, So it was just like, I was just kind of like felt for this guy, like this poor guy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's not far, he's pretty close.
I think it's ironic that when you get into all of these cultural offshoots, these nonconformist groups where they have forged a life based upon the platform, I do not have to follow society's norms or expectations. But then they get within this group ready to spread their wings and show their individuality. But the irony is that you don't really have any individuality in that group, because if you start to spread your wings and be an individual within that nonconformist group, you are also pushed out of that. So is there really such thing as a group that says we're going to just open our arms up to any weird person or whatever they want to do? And it's hard to find. There's a lot of hypocrisy within these splintered nonconformist,
that's
communities.
Why a lot of the youth run to the LGBT movement, right? They run to the LGBT movement because they're broken and they feel like they have no worth, and a lot of them are sexualized, whether some kind of abuse, and oh, look who popped in. It's Bonnie Gasper.
Oh hey, Bonnie!
Vicki Joy.
Oh,
I saw that this was your last night. I can't believe it.
Oh, so many of my favorite people keep popping up. Is my dad going to be on here in a second? Oh, Bonnie and Sarah, I'm so excited. Thanks for being on.
Well, thank you for all the work that you've done, Vicki Joy, in this whole ministry, and you too, David. I mean, wow, just God's blessing on you for just to continue, and it's powerful stuff, really powerful stuff. And I'm just consider myself totally blessed and honored to have made this connection. First of all, through Vicki Joy, then to get to know you, and wow, I've just got a new sister and brother in the Lord, and it's just, I'm blessed. I'm just totally
absolutely
blessed. So
Me
So does
too.
Sarah and Bonnie know each other?
I don't think so.
No.
Sarah, Bonnie, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
No.
Sarah's a longtime friend of Vicky's, and she's also been a guest on the show. So Vicky has like a lot of interesting people in her life because like
She
they're
sure,
all
well,
been
because
guests
she's
on
an
this
interesting
show.
person.
I do. I don't have too many friends. Like if you put all my friends in a room, it would be quite the motley crew. I don't think there'd be too many people like, yeah, there's my match.
No, that's awesome.
Which is why I'm there too. I don't really fit anywhere normal either. But yeah, so Bonnie, I'm so glad you joined. I just feel like I've really only been at this about 2 years. This particular, area of the fight, so to speak. And I don't even feel like my big toe has gotten all the way wet. Like, I mean, I haven't really had any like warfare or persecution at this point, and I keep just looking over my shoulder like, you can't be in this kind of ministry and get like no pushback. And I hear the stuff that you do and that CPL does and that Nehemiah's Reset does and that the Salt and Light teams. And when I get back to the cities and this book deal is behind me, I really want to jump in. Not like I'm looking for controversy. I'm not looking for reasons to have my feelings hurt and be up all night feeling bad because people treat me like garbage. But, there is a point where you're like, am I doing this right? Am I only preaching to the choir at this point? I think is maybe sometimes what I worry about. And, there's a point where you got to get to the message to the people that need to be rescued by it, so.
Well, believe me, Vicky Joy, we will find a place for you to help us.
Yeah.
We have many, many needs, but you're right. A Bible teacher said to me a long time ago, she says, if you're not facing any opposition, she goes, check your witness. And I was super convicted by that. I thought, yeah, okay. So if I'm not getting any pushback, then I'm probably not being very salty, right? Not being very effective anywhere. And, and sometimes we are a lot of times preaching to the choir. I mean, a lot of the work that I do is we are trying to equip Christians and especially parents, what is this stuff? I mean, how do we do this? How do we handle this? And so many times it is the same, it is preaching to the choir, but you just pray that God takes it and he just does what he needs to do with it, right? And it reaches the right people. You just have to be faithful, just do the next thing, do the next thing, do the next thing,
Yeah.
Also don't think that you are not being effective when you don't get pushback, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember going to some of the ones that get, like Pete LaBarbera and Brian Kamaker and many other people, right? And who are pretty on the front lines in these battles. And I remember going to them and saying, what am I, small cookies or something? Like, they're not coming after me. They're not attacking me. They're not trying to defame me or, or anything like they're doing to all of y'all. And then one of them just said to me, he says, no, David, he was like, they can do all of the things they do to us because we've never really truly lived it. We've never been in their shoes.
Mm.
But it's you they don't want to bring attention to. They don't want to shine that light on you.
Oh,
if
sure.
they attack you, right, and they shine that light on you, then others are going to look to you.
Right.
Like right now, the others just see all them as a bunch of hateful,
right,
hypocrites. But to see those who were advocating for the movement and who were deeply involved and deeply rooted, to see them out, and speaking and exposing it is something that they don't want someone to see, and it's a lot. I mean, I've seen it a lot. I've seen it. I could probably just run off 10 times off the top of my head about where I've went somewhere with somebody and every speaker was mentioned but me in the Christian and the secular newspaper. Like every single one was mentioned and beat up and trashed except me. I wasn't even there. And I'm like,
wow,
what's wrong with them? I was there. You know,
Yeah,
and I even
sometimes
go
it's
like
nice to
on their
fly under the
social
radar,
media
though.
post like I was there too.
Yeah, no, it's kind of nice to fly under the radar, though. I have to. I remember one time, and I think I might have shared this with you, Vicki Joy, but there was a time I was writing a column, and it was dealing with all these cultural hot potato issues, and I was invited to a meeting at the public school, and I went kind of undercover, right? And I remember going in there, and we were supposed to sign up, but I remember feeling, oh, probably shouldn't. I just felt like I shouldn't sign up, so I didn't. Then I'm sitting there, and they start the meeting. They hold up my picture with my article and say, by now, I'm sure that you've heard all this hateful rhetoric coming from Bonnie Gasper of writing for this stuff. And I sat there and thought, oh my gosh, here I'm surrounded by all these people, but literally it was as if I was invisible. And the scripture that came into my mind was, I will be your shield and your very great reward. So I sat there for 2.5 hours, took copious notes. Nobody noticed me. Nobody said anything. It was like I wasn't even there. It was amazing because I needed to be there to get the stuff I needed. So it was just,
Yeah.
God does crazy stuff.
Oh,
So,
man.
yeah, it was cool.
Man. Yeah.
So,
Well, and I think sometimes too, this is the way fear works. You have an idea in your head of a worst case scenario and what something's going to look like and how, you have this worst case scenario of how you're emotionally going to handle it and how unequipped you are. And so when, your worst expectations are never realized, you're almost like, well, it's got to happen at some point, right? And like we never account for the fact that, God might do something else, or and
right.
not to mention the fact, maybe there really is an approach. If you are among a group of people that God has put you in, maybe He's put you in that group at that time, and their hearts are prepared, and there's not going to be pushback and the hate speech stuff because they're ready at that point to hear the message. And so, I'm not a pessimist. I'm not one of these always waiting Chicken Little type people. You know what I mean? But I think just because I got bullied so much as a kid, that's kind of like the worst fear that always hovers. That's what the enemy will use. Like, oh, they're going to call you names. And it's like, you know what? I'm not 11 anymore. If the worst thing that happens is people call me names, I think I can handle it at this point. But it's funny how he can take those little things that were so terrifying to you as a child, and he'll still use them as an adult, and you'll start to freak out, and then you're like, well, wait a minute, so they'll sling some mud at me, like,
well, and what you're saying just proves so much of what all of us are talking about, right? It's just how much of an imprint those childhood experiences leave. So that's why it's just so critically important that the information that's being imprinted is the truth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lies,
absolutely.
It just leaves a permanent, indelible impression. So, yeah. Gosh.
Oh, I forget what I was going to say. Wow. I had something, and then I started reading something else, and I forgot.
Uh-oh.
That's what happens when you get old.
This is where it begins, people.
Yes, trust me. And it happens all the time anymore. All the time.
Oh, gosh.
Well, actually, I have to do another podcast, believe it or not. But when I saw your invitation, I'm like, oh, I gotta pop in at least say hello.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bonnie.
I gotta tap out, but I wanted to for sure say hello
Thank you.
say hi to you again, David, and nice to meet you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Yeah.
Yep, and have a great night tonight.
Thank you, Bonnie. Love you.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow. It's like this is your live game show.
Oh, so like
dude, please stand by. We're having technical difficulties.
it was like wow.
I always say the train left the station, just pick up at the next stop.
That's right.
The train crashed. It must have been an Amtrak train, and the driver must have had a glass of wine.
Oh man.
Okay. So here you go. I was like looking at some older shows, right? And I don't even remember which show, but I made a statement and in an older show, and I wanted to, because what I was gonna try to do, but then I realized like this isn't no like, real studio, and I don't have the equipment to do all the things I wanted to do. So I didn't do any of it. But because what I was going to try to do is like pull slices of the different shows of you
Oh wow.
making certain statements and then make a video.
Oh,
So
oh
it's about
gosh.
the count. So I made this statement
compilation.
as like, if I choose sin in my life and I allow it to have power or authority over me, that I'm choosing to serve the God of this world instead of serving God Almighty. And I had said that, and I don't think that that's completely on point.
Unpack.
Huh?
Unpack your thoughts.
Oh, okay. So, so that kind of thinking, it comes from, like the whole. Well, God says in His Word that He's angry with the wicked, and so we automatically say that means God is angry with the sinner, right?
Mm.
But since I made that statement, right, and since I know what message I was reading that day when I was, that I had put together, I was blown away that in just so many months, right? I mean, how long have we been at this?
Wow. Was it February? Was it February?
Yeah.
Sarah's shaking. Sarah would know more than I.
In January, we did transforming prayer.
Yeah, that's what I was. That's why.
So we started in November or December, right?
Well, no, I think we started after we did the whole month of transforming prayer in January.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah, I think so.
What you said, Sarah?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Then that's what it was. I was like, yeah, that's right. And I didn't hear a word she said. So the whole thought, right, was that in just 5 or 6 months, and then in the last 2 weeks of being alone with the Father and really just wanting to, He placed people in my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked about it on the morning show in the last few days about some of the people. So He put this woman in, and I went into this diner, and I'm sitting there, and there was only one person in the diner with her 2 kids. And I later, after, like the next day and later on in the rest of that week or two, I really realized that was by design, because this place was always jam-packed. There were people waiting outside to get in. And so I'm sitting there and I eat, and the woman says to me, she's like, well, how's the food? And so what are you visiting? You passing through? What? And I said, well, I'm kind of on a sabbatical, I guess. I was like, I don't like calling it that. I was like, because I don't know if that's like for priests, because I'm not, right? And so she's laughing and we're talking. And so I give her a little testimony, and she says, you mind if I sit down? I was like, no. And she sits and she says, how do you minister? I said, what do you mean? Right? No one's ever asked me, how do you minister? Right? And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, how do you minister to homosexuals? I was like, well, I don't do it the same way I minister to everybody else. I said, but I said, honestly, I said, I started out really, really rough. Really rough. I was like just blatant, like in their face, knocking people down, hurting their feelings. I was like just really being a butthead. And I was like, and aggressive, very aggressive. A lot of it in the beginning was being overzealous. I was like, and then I kind of started watering it down so that I could be liked by the other people, right? Who weren't liking the aggressive. So I started being passive about it, and washing it, watering it down and all that stuff, and even leaving parts out that were offensive. And I said, and then I got really aggressive again, and I went to Ohio and I started hanging with people who were very aggressive. I was like, and it was, it was a dangerous place spiritually for me. I was like, because what I noticed, I was like, was all these people that were around me, there were ministries all around me that were out in the streets and thinking that they were boom, 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 bang, doing something. I said, but the one that the enemy didn't want there was me. I was like, because I got attacked, around this time by like spiritual demonic attacks, and it was deep. And I said, and it went on and on. I said, and it really caused a lot of heartache for me. And so I said, Yeshua has showed me that I am to establish relationships. I said, it's that simple. Establish a relationship. You don't have to remind somebody what your stand is or where you stand or what their sin is. I was like, every time you see them or hang out with them, I said, because if they know you and you're genuine, then they know where you stand, and it's okay with them because they know that you really care. And so she looked at me and she said, thank you for being obedient. And then she asked me, she said, do you ever hear of Matthew Shepard? And I was like, I know the name. I was like, but I can't really place it at this moment. I was like, but the name rings a bell. And she sat there and she says to me, she says, I love the Lord. She said, and I've loved him all my life. She said, I may not have walked with him all my life, but I loved him all my life. She's like, and I grew up in a family that loved him. And it didn't take me long into my teenage years and my 20s to get really close to him and to start walking in his way. She says, however, I never believed that homosexuality was a sin because my brother was a homosexual. She says, until the late 90s, she said, when there was a national tragedy, Matthew Shepard, a 21-year-old boy, was beaten and tortured and murdered by two other 21-year-old boys for being homosexual. And she said, and I remember, and this was, I get goosebumps. She says to me, when I seen it on the news, the Lord spoke to me. And she said, the Lord said to me, homosexuality is wrong. Homosexuality is sin. Nothing warrants being beaten and tortured to death. That's why I came in the form of man to take all of that upon me. And so now I got like tears in my eyes, right? And I'm like all into this conversation. She says, but he wasn't done, David. She said, he said to me, but they didn't only beat me and attack me with their hands. They did it with their words too. They humiliated me. Nobody deserves to be humiliated with words or to be beaten and scourged. And so of course I lost it, and she was crying and we were like hugging, and it was kind of like one of them moments, and the cook is like looking out through the little window, and the lady and her kids are looking over like, and the lady's telling her kids, shut up, shut up, mind your business, turn your head, all that. And I started like really thinking, and I'm like, wow, how many people are out there verbally attacking the homosexual movement, verbally attacking them, which is no different than physically attacking them. Because if the one true loving God robed himself in flesh and became the man, Yeshua, Jesus the Christ, to take all of that upon himself, even the verbal. Then, golly, we have a lot of catching up to do. You know, and so I left and I went back to the place that I was staying at, and I looked up the story, and when I read it, it rang bells, you know, and I bawled my eyes out, and there was a movie, and I watched the movie, and it's the Matthew Shepard story, and I watched the movie, and I just cried and cried and cried, and what she said to me was spoken so clear and so well in the movie. Because at the end of the movie, the parents, okay, so like there were two boys who were on trial. The one boy took no part in the beating. He got 2 life sentences back to back with no chance of parole. The other boy, it was guaranteed that he was going to get the death penalty. Guaranteed. Even the defense knew it, because they even sent a message to the state. Please let us talk to the parents, to Matthew's parents, because my client doesn't want to die. He wants to plead for his life to them. And the parents were like, no, he killed my boy. He's got to die. He has to get the death penalty. That is what's going to give us closure. And so they started digging through like his personal effects, and then they started reaching out to people he knew and finding out so much more about their son. And what they found out was that he suffered all of his life from the verbal attacks, from the verbal beatings daily, from the daily eye lashings, from the daily, ew, get away from me kind of reactions. And he found this, they found this out. And they also found out that when he moved out on his own, that his neighbor, you could, like, in the movie, he would hear his neighbor calling him all kinds of fags and writing on his door, get out fag. And they were just terrible, right? And but when he moved, he took a glass angel that somebody really special to him gave to him, and he left it at that neighbor's door. And when a friend of his went back to his apartment to get his jacket that he forgot, when she came out, the neighbor said, "What'd you leave this at my door for?" And she said, "I didn't, but knowing Matthew, he did, because he would have wanted you to have it, because he sees more in you than you saw in him." And, you know, she went her way. And I was like, wow. And so what his parents learned were exactly what that woman said to me in the diner was, those were the words hurt the worst, right? The humiliation hurts, if not worse, but just as much as the physical attacks. And they do. And oh man, did I resonate. Our lives were completely different, mine and Matthew's, but I resonated so much with this movie. This movie was so good. It was so good. And so yeah, I forget everything I was going to talk about. But that movie was just so good. I highly recommend everyone watch it. The Matthew Shepard story. And then when I ordered that movie to watch it, I saw another movie called Save Me. So I watched that movie, right? And that one was about conversion therapy. So, you know, I was all over that, right? Because conversion therapy, no, right? And it was deep. That's all I can really say about it. I really can't talk about a lot of what I think, because there's some things I'm not sure what I think about that movie right now. Anyway, but there's so much going on, you know. The goal for us when we're reaching out to others shouldn't be changed, right? The goal should be made whole. How are they made whole? They're made whole by us establishing relationships with them and introducing them to the one that can make them whole. We can't make them whole. We can't save them. We can't rescue them. And I'm way ahead of myself, really, because I'm sure we've talked in the past about the vision of having a home for LGBT to come into a safe place and all that. Well, that vision is like right here now, and I know that there has to be a place for them to come to that doesn't have an expectation of them to change. And it's not a program, right? Definitely not no conversion or reparative therapy stuff, but a safe place. I don't want to keep talking the whole show, by the way. Anybody want to jump in, please do.
Well, you know, what earlier, before you began talking about the woman in the diner, I was thinking it's really refreshing and I guess encouraging, for lack of a better word. If I could pull a different word out of a hat, I would. But, you know, I sit here on this side of the fence as never having been LGBT. And I think all of us who are in my boat, we have this pendulum swing, you know, and there's been cultural shifts in the church. Every decade, there's different kind of worship and different songs and different worship leaders and different trends and different, you know, it changes. And the way that we engage the inner city and our suburbs and across the world, those change. We keep, you know, innovating things. And so we've all had this pendulum swing where we've done the street ministry, we've done the throwing at tracks, we've done the like sitting there on the streets feeling extremely uncomfortable and out of place, and we've tried the holding up a picket sign in the middle of, you know, a gay parade and not saying a word because we have no idea what to say, or we're fish out of water, you know. And you know, it's nice to know that, like, I always kind of figured, well, wow, what a tactical advantage you'd have if you came out of that community, because you'd have the language and the linguine, you'd have the shared experience, you'd have the I've been there, I understand. And so it's very enlightening to me that even the people coming out of this community have this pendulum swing of having to figure out how to minister, and going from one extreme to the other, where you do go in and, you know, you might not be saying fire and brimstone, but you're going in with the same sort of passion, and the passion is motivated differently than perhaps like the Christians. But it's I guess kind of encouraging to me, because I've had friends and coworkers who were gay for 30 years, and I'm still trying to figure out, like, well, have I come across like an effective way to do this, or, you know. And I sort of came to the same conclusion you did ultimately. You know, the people that I have had the most opportunity to genuinely have long-standing relationships with, and I've had the most opportunities to preach the gospel, are the people where we're just friends.
Yeah,
You know,
you
we
establish relationships with.
I do the same things with my gay friends as I do with my Christian or my non-Christian friends, and we hang out and we goof off on polo and we send each other silly texts, and I love what you said, because it took me a long time to figure it out. Once they know you're a Christian, they make the assumption that you think it's a sin. Eventually, once the trust builds, they will ask you, do you think this is a sin? Do you think I'm going to hell? And at that point, I'm prepared. Once the trust is built, I know what to say. I kind of have a script. I kind of know where to go. And I always have this tactic of I will level the playing field, you know, and I just tell them, this is not going to go well if we have a gay straight conversation, because if you're gay and I'm straight, then from the get-go, I'm on a pedestal looking down on you. So let's level the playing field.
Right.
And I read, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. I read the various verses of scripture that talk about every single thing that God considers to be sexual deviance, whether it's divorce, fornication, adultery, lust, even looking at a woman and thinking about it, and like all the stuff. And so I said, so I've just leveled the playing field. Every single person who comes to Christ has to lay their sexual identity at the door and start from scratch, because by nature, we are of the flesh. And then I say, so with that said, anyone whose sexual identity is of the flesh and not of, you know, whatever, we go from there. But the fact is, you might have to be friends with someone for 5 years before you can even have that conversation. And so, you know, we have all these feelings like preaching the gospel means you've got a box of 4 spiritual laws in your car and you are handing it out to every single gay person. Like every time you're at a restaurant, if the waiter's gay, you're leaving it on the table, and every, you know, I think we have to be a little more strategic than that, because if you've got
more strategic than that.
right, I mean, if you've got if you've got 5 minutes to an hour with a person you're never going to see again, don't plant a seed that's going to choke out any possibility that that person's going to hear the message when it is clearly presented to them. And, you know, when I run into those situations, like if I'm at a restaurant or whatever, I'm always praying and like, God, should I say something? And should I do something? And, you know, sometimes the best thing you can do is not be the customer that's ignorant and mean and cruel and giggling when they walk away and, you know, treating them differently, you know? And
That's a good point right there about just with that right there, just that.
mm-hmm.
Because I guess like those between those 2 movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then me spending time with the Father and me like really, I spent a lot of time on the floor the last couple weeks. A lot of time on my face, a lot of time just like sobbing uncontrollably, shaking. And because I really get it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know why the defense is always up and they're ready to go, and
Oh,
and they're
sure.
ready to attack before you can, and they're ready to get you, and I understand it. And then I saw those movies and it was like I started having like flashbacks of all of
Sure.
the verbal,
Right.
and that's aside from all the physical, you know. And then it got me back into my like, well, gosh, God, why? You know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like the whole, and I think we talked about it with um, with Linda Harvey, maybe, I don't know, maybe it was before, during, I don't even remember anymore. But you know, I'm like, Lord, I didn't, you know, why did I have to endure this and then this and then this, and why didn't I have a childhood, and why didn't I have my teenage years, and why didn't I have any kind of normalcy, why didn't this, why, and then I watched these movies and I'm like, and why again did you let me endure all of that, you know? And and I'm telling you, I said, can't I just have a normal life? Can't I just have a normal life? And it was almost audible. So you can have, so would you prefer a few years of this normal life, or would you prefer eternity?
Mm.
And I'm like,
Well,
that's not fair, right?
well,
But
but but
it
but
is.
but sadly too, David, you know, um, your life is sadly pretty normal. Most of us, even those of us who have come to know and love Jesus and who've been saved and have an exciting future where we will shine brighter than the sun. Me and Sarah have a totally different story than yours, but we could probably put ourselves in everything that you just said. You know, our childhoods were robbed from us in different ways by different people as well, and a lot of verbal hurt. And, you know, my physical pain wasn't abuse, but it was a lot of physical pain and fear in hospitals. And so, I mean, I think in a horrible sense, you did have a completely normal life. It was marked with trial and sorrow and tragedy and trauma, and it was a working through that. And I think what makes us not have a normal life is that we go through 20, 30, 40 years of that, and we come out on the other side redeemed, and that brokenness was fixed, and that shattered glass is somehow put back together. Like, that's what makes us not normal, the three of us. But the crap we went through as kids and teenagers and adolescents, and that, unfortunately,
Is
I
normal.
think is pretty normal.
And I agree. I agree. It's, you know, we don't look at it like that, right?
No.
Because
You're-
we look all around us, and only because we're not walking in everyone else's shoes, and
Mhm.
we see everyone else living a pretty normal life,
Mhm.
right?
Or so we think when we look at Facebook 10 hours a
Exactly.
day.
Yeah.
And people are only presenting the perfect, like, you know, Facebook has turned everyone's whole existence into the 20th year high school reunion. It's that one night you're going to prove to everybody that you stayed thin and got the nice spouse and the high paying job. Facebook has turned everyone's life into the 20-year high school reunion perpetually every day, you know, and it's just, it's not real. I mean, even the people in the beautiful suburban houses who have the spouses that make six figures, um, we don't know the misery that they're hiding, or the adultery that they've overcome, or the abuse as a kid, or their parents who died when they were kids, or the fact that they were adopted. I mean, we all know people who've been adopted, the pain that they go through, even all the way into adulthood, and the questions that are unanswered. And every time they look at another family out in public, there's questions and whys, and we all just have these gaping wounds. Some of us just get to live in prettier houses when we're licking our wounds, you know.
Well, you know, that's what you get to notice too. Like when I watched the Matthew Shepard story,
Mm.
totally different life. He had both parents in his life. Him and his dad got along amazingly well. They went out like hunting, and he liked hunting. You know, those kind of things. Like those, they had a great, amazing relationship. And although our lives were completely different, they were very much the same. You know, so, and it was that normalcy that you're really talking of. And I like what April had to say, April Ray, and I had to go back to it, not to cut our conversation short, because when we were talking about the home and a safe place for those people, who have accepted, who have sincerely accepted, right,
Mhm.
this identity in a world that draws a line around them and says there's nothing for you past that line once you accept this
Mhm.
identity. And so in this world that they accept this identity, it's they need a place to go. And April said it perfectly: a sanctuary from the storm. And
Mm.
and that's exactly what they need. So thank you for that, April. And April also said, what would happen if you went to a parade with a sign that just says, "Can I pray for or with you?" And there are people that do that. There are people who go and say, have signs that say, hey, free hugs and prayer, whichever you like, you know. And when you're just offering prayer or free hugs, please, there are a whole lot of people at the LGBT parade that are that are just that would want nothing more but to have you embrace them and say a prayer for them. You know, we gosh, we get to experience that whenever we do a 3-day ministry, we get to experience that. And whenever I've been at a parade or a function, a pride function, they will accept a hug. They even come up to me and say, "Can I hug you?" You know, and I'll tell you what. One of the best stories, right, was these two lesbians, and at the parade in Columbus, and I just froze for a minute, but then I realized, okay, that was Vicki commenting, Brandon.
I've taken over the controls.
I know. I'm like, what happened? I didn't say anything.
Well, I put this as Vicki in parentheses under my first note. So yeah.
Okay. I didn't see the first note. Anyway.
Yeah, to Nate.
I am. Oh, so there's two lesbians, right? One has no shirt on, just had her breasts removed. She's, you know, obviously trying to be a man, and the other one is the woman, and they're both women, mind you. And the one that looks like a woman says, "Can I hug you?" And I was like, "Sure." And I give her a hug, and she goes, "Wow, you give the best hugs ever." And I said, I guess kind of sarcastically, but being me, you know, being funny and sarcastic and cute, I say, well, that's because I'm a man and you're a woman, and that's the way it's supposed to be, sweetheart. And so she automatically looks at her friend, right, her partner in crime, and her partner was like, well, can I have a hug too then, right? So I was like, yeah. So I give her a hug, right? And she's like, wow, you really do give good hugs. And I said, well, contrary to popular belief, that's because you're a woman and I'm a man. And that's the way it's supposed to be. And that kind of broke like the ice, right? And she opened up and she just poured out how she was like brought up in this very charismatic church by some very religious parents, and how they took her. They called a special church meeting one night when her mom found like a letter that she wrote to some girl, and they took her to this special church meeting and threw her down at the altar on the floor, and they all over her, and
how'd that go?
like tried to like beat the demon out of her and hand to forehead kind of thing, and she said she ran away that night and she's never went home. And she's been on the streets ever since, you know. And that is the brokenness. That's the brokenness. That's the normal. You know, that's the normal. That's the normal. That stems from all of, or that the brokenness stems from. Thank you, Linda.
Well, I mean, Sarah, you've worked with broken people. You've mentored and counseled and worked with broken people and abused people, addicted people, not necessarily LGBT, but it absolutely applies. And so many of us on this channel, we're trying to come up with ways that are effective and authentic, but also, I mean, effective. And what have been some of the things you've learned? Kind of what are there anything? I mean, I know there's no formulas, but what are some of the things that you've come across that might be helpful for us to apply in this situation?
one thing is just really listen. People know when they're projects and they don't want to be projects. And we need to just have the opening ear and humble heart of not like I'm, haughtier than you or better than you because I'm no longer dealing with this anymore, or I never dealt with that. But open heart and ears to just sit and listen. And not interrupt when they're talking. Let them finish, until they're silent, and then, speak up. But be praying for the Holy Spirit to be giving the words to speak next. And, some people are just willing to come and just let everything the first time they ever meet you. And some people, it takes years. And you just have to be that tried and true person that they know they can really trust, and know that they can really come to, and that you're not going to judge them, gossip about them. I usually say when I'm sitting and talking with someone, I say, just to let you know, whatever's shared here stays here. It does not go any further, and I physically see so many people go,
yes.
Because they've shared stuff with others, and then the next thing you know, 30 people know it. And, and then I always make an effort at the end whenever I talk to someone. That's right, Colleen, 2 ears for a reason. That is right. But, and then at the end, I always make sure, I pray with the person. And, and then I'm just this type of person. Like if I'm sitting with someone in the next couple of days, I'll, pray for a verse and I'll text them a verse just to let them know I'm thinking of them, not constantly keep up with them. And now I do a little bit different where I'm more one-on-one mentoring for a longer term, but really people just want to be loved and heard and accepted. And, I thought about when David was talking, just a couple little stories. I don't have a lot of experience with LGBTQ community per se. I've had a few LGBTQ people run through my life. And one of them was when I was working in ministry with a Muslim community, and he was actually a Muslim. And
wow.
He became a Christian. And yet he said he was gay. And so a few of us were sitting around talking to him, and, the pastor of the Muslim church that I was working amongst said, well, why are you gay? Like, this is not acceptable. And, what do your parents think? And he's like, my parents didn't kick me out because I'm gay. They kicked me out because I'm Christian. They didn't know I was gay.
Wow.
And so, and so I just said to him, I remember I was picturing it when David was talking, the exact area we were in. And I said, well, why do you think you were born this way? What do you think? He goes, I've just never been accepted amongst my family or my community. And he goes, I just wanted to go somewhere accepted. And I met a few gay people and they accepted me. So I decided I must be gay. And he goes, and I just met a few of these Christian Muslims that had converted. And so he goes, I felt like I'm going to convert to Christianity and maybe they'll accept me better than the gay community, because they weren't so accepting at that time in the area I was working for some reason. They were Muslim and, he was still practicing Islam and very strict, and his parents were very strict. And so there was some issues there. And, he did leave the gay lifestyle, but all he wanted to be was accepted and loved and heard. And, because it was a very small population of Christians. I think there was like 8 Christian Muslims out of almost 100,000 Muslims at that time. He just wanted to be loved and heard. And the church, that little church surrounded him, and it really stuck with me that, like, as a church body, meaning the believers, we have to surround people and love them. And, and give them grace and listen to them and meet them where they're at, and not, point that finger, that judgmental finger. Because trust me, I grew up with that judgmental finger and it does not work. It just pulls you away. And another like quick story was I was in a group of ladies, and it was a very eclectic group. We were put together in a counseling situation, and one of them was a lesbian rabbi. And, you know, the counselor said to me, Sarah, you're a Christian. What do you think of that? Like, like, okay, I got to say something. I'm like, I don't know what I think, you know, because I've only had 30 seconds to hear about this and respond. But
oh man.
I said, I really don't think anything of it. I said, so far from what I know of her, she's a very delightful person and I really like her, you know? And the next day she called me, texted me because we had shared our phone numbers and said, would you like to meet for lunch, the lesbian rabbi? I said, okay. You know, we met for lunch and she looked me straight in the eye, and she had lived in Texas and moved to Connecticut. And she said, you are the first Christian I've ever come across in my life. Mind you, this lady was 60 at the time, that has never judged me when I opened my mouth to say I was a lesbian rabbi.
Wow.
And she goes, therefore, I would like to get to know you. And we ended up talking Old Testament a lot of the time, you know, because she was Jewish, I'm Christian, and, you know, that's a common thing. And we would meet and talk Old Testament, and, you know, it was a great time. We were good friends for a long time, and life moved on, you know, and we all moved and they moved, and, you know, but, you know, it's just, we just have to love people and meet them where they're at and listen. You know, it really comes down to listening. You know, and the last little story, and then I have something I want to say to Vicki directly, because that was the real purpose why I was here. But we were down in Charleston, South Carolina on vacation last year, my husband and brother and I, and my husband and brother went to get the car, and I'm standing, you know, on the street just waiting because I really didn't want to walk back and get the car. I was tired. It was hot, and I'm a Midwesterner and I don't like heat. So anyway, there was obviously a drag something or other there, because there was a lot of people in drag, and the people were just walking around them like glaring, staring. People were like crossing the street in the opposite direction. It was just quite obvious that this group of people no one wanted to be around. I was standing there and they walked by, and I smiled and said hi. And as this last guy was walking by, he goes, hey, did you hear her? She actually said hello to us. There is nice people in this world.
Oh.
And literally after that, Raj and my brother pulled up and I got in the car. And, you know, it's just about a smile sometimes. I mean, that obviously made an impression on that guy. You know, I smiled and said hi. I mean,
absolutely. Absolutely.
Say hi to someone and be nice.
It takes sometimes.
Yeah. That, you know, here in Minnesota, Sarah, I don't know if you picked up on this when you lived here, but we're all kind of very socially introverted. And hi, Ollie. And we don't do a lot of like chatting with people in the street we don't know, like, you know, and it's very out of my comfort zone to do that. But the few times that I have, like your experience, I've been shocked. Like, I remember one time I was in the passenger seat in a car driving downtown Minneapolis, and it was late at night, you know, and so people were coming out of the bars and stuff, and it was very hot and the windows were down, and we were at a red light and the streets were packed, and there was a whole bunch of African-American youths on the corner blaring music and dancing, and they're like right next to my window, you know. And it was just one of those rare moments where instead of acting like an uptight tighty whitey, I was just like, yeah. And I just kind of started like grooving in the car, like along with them. And they all noticed, and they were like, hey, and they were like, it was this awesome like connection. And I just thought, wow, lesson learned. Like, what if I had been like, roll up the window really quick? You know what I mean? Like, we gotta just chill out. Like, sometimes someone just needs a human connection. We don't know what they're going through, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, I always say, you know, normal is not even really it's an overrated word, you know, because there is no normal, and
it doesn't exist.
We don't know that person's story, you know. And as you were saying, big houses, we live in a nice area in Connecticut, and, you know, we don't live in $1 million house by any means, but around the corner from us are the $1 million houses, and a guy murdered his wife. I mean, do we really know, you know? I mean, I mean,
Yeah.
this was before we moved in, by the way, a while ago, you know, it's been news because there's developments in his case or whatever. But, you know, do we really know? We don't know what people, I mean, people are good at putting on facades, especially Christians at church. And you
Oh
walk,
yeah.
everyone's smiling. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. But yet, if you really look into people's eyes, you can tell if they're fine or not, you know? And sometimes it's just like, okay, well, you know, if you ever need an ear or something, or just even, I remember one day at church quite a while ago, this old lady comes up, and I was just standing there, and, you know, I smiled and said hi to her, and she just comes and she goes, I'm going to pray for you. And she just prayed for me. And it was like
Wow.
the most touching thing, but yet it spoke to me to be that kind of person, you know?
Yeah. Yes.
You know,
Yep.
if you're prompted by the Spirit, just pray for that person. You don't know, you know, and
Oh, absolutely. And Sarah,
walk, you know, I might seek out that lady, you know?
absolutely. And that actually brings something to my mind. And I don't know if Colleen is still on. She probably still is, but Colleen's a friend of mine and Sarah's. And, you know, many years ago when I moved away from Minnesota for a while, and I was going through a lot of tough stuff, and Colleen and I had been roommates prior to that in Minnesota. And so she was my go-to. Like, I would call and I would be freaking out, and like, I'm not like, oh, I'm not like a crier. I'm like, this, like, I'm like a spaz when I'm stressed out, right? And so, you know, so got a lot of phone calls from to Colleen, and she would be one of those, like, let's pray right now on the phone. And you know, we all know those people, and some of you might be that but like, I'm very introverted, and it's like, whenever I get those calls from my friends, it's always like the thought, like, pray for them right now. And it's like this struggle for me, like, you know, to do that. And my desire to do it is like, you know, because Colleen did it for me that year that I lived out of state, and it sustained me through that year. Right. And so the last time I had that prompting, it was a polo actually, and it was a friend and going through this struggle, and she's younger than me. And I was like, polo her back and just pray for her. And I'm like, no, I can't. I'm like, I don't want to be preaching at her, and I don't want to be like a nerd, and I don't want to be, and I had that war going on in me, and usually I crumble and I don't do it. And I did it.
Mm.
And I left her like this 15-minute polo, and the whole entire thing was a prayer. And you guys, this sounds like a Hallmark movie. I'm sorry to like go to the melodramatic cliche, but, we didn't speak for like 3 months, and she died. She was young and she died in her sleep, and it was very unexpected. And I went back to my polos kind of like, oh my gosh, what was the last thing I said to her? When was the last time I talked to her? Because I couldn't really remember at that point. I cannot even tell you the relief that was going through my mind and heart when I realized what I probably would have been going through if I had known that was the time I was going to pray for her, and I didn't. Like, so yeah, Sarah, I just resonate so much with what you just said about, we got to get over ourselves. And if anytime that voice comes into our head, like, offer to pray for them right now. It doesn't matter if it's a coworker. It doesn't matter if they're not a Christian. It doesn't matter if they're an atheist. It doesn't matter if they've told you 100 times before that to back off. Like, I know my dad is so social, more so than me. He'll go into any grocery store or bank or like, and everybody is like, see you, Jeff. Like, I mean, oh my gosh. And so he made friends with a guy at a bank. It was his bank teller, and his daughter was sick. And my dad's like, well, you know, I'm a pastor. Like, can I pray for you? I'm like, no. I think Muslim, maybe. I don't know what he was. But anyway, finally, my dad said, well, I'm going to pray for your daughter anyway. Like, I'm going to keep praying for her, whatever. And so, you know, here's an example of a guy that numerous times offered, can I pray for you? And the guy said no. And dad continued to come in, I'm praying for your daughter. And the daughter did get well. And now this guy's having like coffee once a month with my dad. And my dad's like sharing the Bible with them and stuff. And so we can't care if someone says, no, I don't want to pray right now. Wow, you know, get over it. But we have to get better at getting over ourselves and our fears of like, oh, we're being rejected. No, we're not. That's not what's going on when people don't want that, so.
And you know what? And that doesn't just go for people that we know, right? Or have relationships with. That goes for everybody because, gosh, I remember, and that's why now I make sure I pay attention because
yeah,
there were so many times in probably maybe 5-6 years ago, and I'm like in a store and the Holy Spirit is like, pray for her. I'm like, I ain't praying for her. I don't know her. I'm definitely not laying my hands on her where she hits me, or all kinds of stuff. And then I remember I saw a woman who was sickly. And I had this unction, right? Or this push. Go lay your hands on her, pray for her. And I said, but what if? And at that moment, I knew I no longer had to pray for her. And I didn't quite get it. And that really bothered me. And I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. And I prayed on it for days. And it was what it came down to was the fact that my but what if was placing my unbelief right there at the forefront. There was I no longer needed to pray for her because I no longer believed that I could do anything for her or that the power that was in me could do anything for her. So we have to know that the Holy Spirit says to pray for somebody, you pray for them. And it doesn't matter who they are, where they are. And if they don't want you to pray for them, you pray for them anyway as they walk away. Because it's not about being obedient to them. It's about being obedient to the Holy Ghost. And that's important. And Sarah wanted to say something to you, Vicki. And I'm sure it's going to make you cry, so I can't wait.
No.
Let's see. Just try, Sarah.
Here we go. I'm just kidding. Anyway, but I want to say one thing first is that, no matter what we say to people and, pray, we don't do the work. The Holy Spirit does the work and Yahweh does the work, so, sometimes it can get tiring. I've been in ministry. I was in Muslim ministry for many, many years and saw very few converts. It can get tiring to be like, is it ever working? But, I hear stories still from that time where, lives are changed from that time in prayer, with people. So, anyone working with anybody, whether it's your neighbor, a coworker, a friend, a family member, just keep praying and loving them and listening to them and such, because it's the Holy Spirit that does the work, not us. So,
Amen.
Anyway.
Amen.
So with that, I know this is your final official Dry Bones show. And David, I want to thank you for putting this together to have a few of us, whoever could pop on to give Vicki a bye-bye. And just, for all you do, David. And I know even though the Vicki won't be on and Dry Bones won't be dry in that sense, because you have a good sense of humor, David. So
yeah, we were when I thought I hit go live, and we were all laughing like, oh yeah, it's gonna be drier bones, the driest bones. And then I was like, well, it don't matter what we just said because I didn't even hit go live yet. Sorry.
Yeah, it was.
So anyway, but Vicki, we've known each other well over 20 years, and I just remember the years in Minnesota, sitting in Perkins at different times, having good talks, and our friendship has always ebb and flowed. Like, I moved away from Minnesota, you moved away from Minnesota, and then randomly I would find you somewhere and online, and all of a sudden email for a while and such. And then Raj and I came to Minnesota for his work, and I said, oh, let me see if Vicki's there. And sure enough, where did we meet again? Perkins.
For 60 minutes, literally. That's all we had.
Minutes was a life change in our friendship,
It was.
Then we've been more in than out. And thanks to Marco Polo, we've been more in And thanks to David having his conference in November, you came and we went up there and brought you to Connecticut for a few days. And poor Raj had to wear earplugs for 3 days.
Poor Raj. Thank you, Raj.
Raj, you could have stayed up in Brewer, you know.
That's
Oh,
right.
man.
David.
I'm pretty sure Sarah and I, in those like 2.5 days we had together, talked more in those 2.5 days than we typically talk in a year to anybody else.
But anyway, out of, all the people I have run across in all my life, you are sincerely one of the most authentic people I know.
Oh,
And, you grew up in this beautiful, loving family. I know both of your parents, and I know your dad is ecstatically proud of you. And I know your mom is too, and would be very proud of where you have come and where you're going. And finishing her book and writing your other books and going to finish this current book you're writing, and I just really feel that the Lord is opening this door of a desire he gave you when you were about 10 years old to step through, to be an author. And, is it going to be a New York Times bestseller? Only time will tell, but it's going to be a heavenly bestseller, because it's going to bring people closer to the Lord, and it's going to bring freedom, especially sleep paralysis, and your transforming prayer book and Emperor's New Gender book. And, and I just really want to encourage you that, it's hard when you wind something down and there's this, I like Dry Bones. I love the Take on the World audience. I love, all these people, but you have to go with God's calling. And, he's calling you into full-time writing. And just because you might be done with the book, there's, as editing and promotion and, and the next book may be in the hopper that you don't even know yet. We may all have ideas, tell you what we want you to write. But, anyway, it's such a joy, as your middle name is, to because you step in and you light up a room. You can sit there quietly and all of a sudden have a mic drop moment, when you turn off. You can joke and laugh. You love people. You love nature. You love people where they're at, You don't judge. And that's why people are drawn to you from all different walks of life and all different ages. And I really admire that, you say, oh, I have friends. Like, you've been friends for 30 years with people. I mean, I think besides 2 other people in Minnesota, you're my longest friend, That's a character trait, a very good quality character trait to have is long-term friendships. And you connect people. I didn't know Colleen until I met you. And by the way, Take on the World crowd, everyone should know Colleen. She's a wonderful lady. And she is a prayer warrior. So,
yes.
But, and, you are too, Vicki, you're a prayer warrior too. And even if you don't pray out loud to people, you do sincerely pray and you do sincerely care about those people in your life, and, I know you sincerely care about, David and the friends you've met through the Take on the World crowd and such. And, I know today's not a goodbye. It's a see you later and check out my book and, and you'll pop out of here and such. But, I really, just want to encourage you, not to be, heavy-hearted and sad, but know that this is a journey you're on. God wants to walk his path, and that's all you're doing is walking his path and being in obedience to him. And, he really just wants you to fulfill this calling that he's given you. It's now time to fulfill that calling.
Yeah,
They're always a good thing because
that's right. That's
to save my life. But, he's bringing you into your true calling now, and what he wants for you to be and go and do and such. And I know that you will, you're honoring that, and that I'm just gonna give you his wisdom. I really feel like, out of spiritual gifts, many, but you have a gift of wisdom also. And, and a gift of words. And, not everyone can say that, so anyway, I love you, and we'll be in contact on Polo.
15 minutes after the show.
David.
Yeah, we got poloing to do tonight. Oh, Sarah,
I have one more thing I'm going to read, because I do have it memorized, but I want to read it. Jeremiah 29:11-13. For I know the plans I have for you, Vicki, declares the Lord. Plans for welfare and not for calamity, to give you, Vicki, a future and a hope. Then you, Vicki, will call upon me and come to me and pray, and I will listen to you, Vicki. Vicki, you will seek me and find me when you, Vicki, search for me with all your heart, and I will be found by you, declares the Lord. So with that, I will stop talking, because I could talk for an hour about you.
Thank you, Sarah. I love you. I love you. I'm so grateful. Y'all, Sarah and I met at a church when we were both in our 20s. And I was doing something completely out of my comfort zone. I was volunteering every Sunday in a preschool Sunday school class. Yep. But it was providential, because that is where I met Sarah. And it's funny, because Sarah had a BFF that went to the church, and I had a BFF that went to the church, and like the four of us would interact. Yes. And there was no other interaction outside of the four of us, except for you and I. Like our BFFs didn't connect, and I didn't connect with her. But it was meant to be. And Jeremiah 29:11 has been my life verse since January 11th, 1991, penciled into my NIV study Bible from college. Life-changing moment in a janitor's closet after a meltdown of 20-year-old proportion. But seriously, Sarah, if you took every adjective in the world and asked me what's the one adjective you would want someone to ascribe to you, it would be authenticity, because I have been the recipient of fakeness my whole life, and nothing makes me more angry, and nothing can be seen through quicker. And I strive diligently every time I converse with someone that, hey, even if it's something they don't want to hear, no matter what you get from me, at least it's 100% exactly. I'm not one of those females where you have to go home and try to decode everything and read between the lines and figure out what I really meant. Like, I mean, what you see is what you get with me. And so that means a lot to me, that comes through to people.
Loud and clear.
Amen. Awesome.
And I want to bring Holly in. Holly wants to say farewell, a little farewell.
Hi, Holly.
Hi, Vicki. I'm so glad I caught you. Thank you so much, David, for allowing me to come on. And it's nice to meet you, Sarah. But I'm Vicki's new friend. So I've only had the honor and pleasure of basically, I think since October 2019, getting to know you online. And you're very thought-provoking. And I'm really grateful. I can't wait to read your books, because they make me think in different perspectives. Just when I feel like I'm locked in one spot, some of the things that you bring up, unlock me from that spot, and I can see things a little bit more clearly, or consider things that I hadn't considered in the past. But meeting you has definitely been a direct blessing from Heavenly Abba to me, and I'm so grateful for you. And thank you so much, Vicki, for being my sister and my friend. And next time when I see you at a conference, I am running up to you, giving you a big fat hug, and begging you for a picture.
Oh, absolutely. No social distancing here, man. Okay, you got it.
I don't comply.
I mean, I do not consent.
I don't consent.
Please don't get started on this social nonsense thing. You had to go bring it up. Now all I see is masks in my head. I see pictures.
Oh gosh.
Masks and gloves and social distancing. And so Okay, so last week, I got my new T-shirt, "Black Flies Matter," right? So, because black flies matter, okay? So I wore it the other day here in Ellsworth, right? And although a lot of people looked at it and liked it, because you can tell when somebody likes something, right, and when they don't. And only one person had the nerve to say to me, "Nice T-shirt," right? Another woman, she was a cashier, and she was talking to somebody else, and she said to her, of course, she was referring to me, right? She goes, "Well, some things just aren't to be made a joke out of. You can't make a joke out of everything," something like that. And so I had to say something. So I was like, "What do you mean? What do you mean? Like maybe wearing a mask and gloves and social distancing, maybe like that kind of joke?" And now everyone in the store is looking at me like I was crazy, but it's okay because it's stupid and it's ridiculous and I'm tired of it. And we don't do that here. You see, four of us, bam, 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 bam. We're like an eighth of an inch apart right now. We are so not following guidelines.
We're gonna get in trouble.
Yeah.
No.
I do that in the store all the time. When I see people with masks on, I walk by, I go, I'm sorry. I know. Maybe I shouldn't do it. Maybe it's wrong. But I love it because it gives me joy. It brings a smile on my face and other people's faces. I like to see other people go, I just love it because this is madness what we're seeing right now.
It's crazy.
You have to say the positive of all this quarantine stuff has been is for those of us introverts, it's a great excuse to say no to gathering.
I've loved, like, I have not had to burn any brain cells thinking of like ridiculous true excuses.
Wow. Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, no, Sarah and I, we've just been having a blast. Like, it's like, I know this season is going to end, but it's just so nice. I'm up at the cabin communing with the chipmunks. It's wonderful. Well, I don't want to part without absolutely saying how amazing our live chat regulars are. And, when I was a kid and I used to watch like TV and like people would get on, the celebrities would get on stage and they'd be like, "What a great audience." Like, and I'm like, what a stupid, like, they don't mean it. It's just cheap applause, and it's so funny because like, I'll get on this show and like the names will start popping up and you're familiar with them. And like my excitement mounts as every person like joins in, and like it goes to my mind to just like say, "Oh my gosh," like, oh, and then I'm thinking, I'm like those idiots on the talk shows that are like, "What a great audience," but I absolutely mean it. And a couple people in the live chat I've actually gotten to meet at conferences, and I think others I will meet in the future, I know. But just so many of you who I haven't met, who I feel like I've met, and just the comments, and I know people are praying for me because even just in the last couple of weeks, my book has taken just this massive leap forward. It's not like I haven't been writing for 10 months straight and gotten content, but the whole thing came together by way of how it needs to be reformatted, and like a bunch of dots got connected within 2 weeks ago. And I just thought, people are praying for me, I can tell. And I can't tell all of you enough how much your kindness has, it's actually been healing. I've said a few times on this show, I avoided social media of all kinds from day one. I'm not on Facebook, I'm not anywhere, because I've been living under this rock, like so scared that if I present myself, I'm going to be criticized. The shills are going to come out. People, you know, we've all seen those YouTube videos where someone presents this like amazing piece of information, and then all the comments are, they're fat, they have too much makeup on, oh, she's ugly. And it's like, I just kind of thought that would be my experience. And, you know, this was my step of faith when David said, will you do this? And I was just like, oh, like this so far out of my comfort zone. And the live chat regulars, you guys have been an absolute gift. I just feel like Yahweh was just like, I am going to mercifully start you out in this perfect scenario where you can get comfortable and get your sea legs. And so that by the time the shills do come out, you're going to be okay. And you have all played a tremendous part in literally in my healing. A lot of anxiety, like social anxieties that I have. And you've all been so genuine and so kind. And, you know, David has said for years how the Take on the World crowd is like the most non-judgmental, non-antagonistic crowd ever. They're not like in this place where they want to bicker even with the people that they have disagreements with. And I truly have not ever seen anything like it. It is just this little microcosm of what it should be like. So thanks to all of you. And you haven't heard or seen the last of me, and I hope I haven't heard or seen the last of you. And I'm easily accessible on my website or through my email. So keep in touch. I genuinely love all of you. Thank you. Thanks, Jason.
And you know, I have to tell you, there's when I asked Vicki, I honestly couldn't think of anybody else that I wanted to come on the show, right? And I was like, and so Vicki was very like organizing. She's like, well, okay, so what is the topic and how are we going to present it? And then what scriptures are we going to use? And then this and then that. And I'm like, just chill. I'm like, we're just going to go on there and we're just going to talk. And then she's like, that scares me. She's like,
no net live without a net.
Do that, right? Yeah, we can't just do that. Nobody wants to come in there and just talk with us. And I'm like, sure they do, because it's all about the fellowship, right? And yeah, so I remember after the second show that we did, and we talk on the phone the next day, and Vicki would be like, David, I can't believe that, like, this and that. And we just talked for like 2.5 hours and nobody wanted to leave. And more people were coming in. And even when we were like, we got to go, nobody wanted to go. And I'm like, that's the fellowship. I'm like, I'm telling you, listen, I've been, in the last almost 11 years, I have been tossed to and fro by ministries and church bodies and congregations and people claiming to be from one God or another, right? So when I went to Take on the World and I met this family, I couldn't. Vicki was going to go that year. She didn't. I couldn't, I was like, actually, I didn't even leave the town before I called her and was like, yo, let me tell you, it was just boom, 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 boom. And then she didn't want to talk forever, right? So she hung up on me, or got off the phone with me. She didn't hang up on me. She got off the phone with me. And then I make these live videos as I'm driving, right? About Yah and Yahweh and God being a generic term and all of this. And then she shot me a text and it said, yeah, hallelujah, YAH. And it was like, boom, because listen, when I went to Take on the World, I had some guards up, right? I had some guards up because there were two.
The bacon t-shirt.
Yeah. Oh, man. Man, oh, man. Let me tell you what. Yeah, okay. So we're going to talk about the bacon t-shirt, okay? Thank you, Vicki.
It's my favorite story. It's
Yeah,
my
this
favorite story. It's my
okay.
favorite. It's like
Since
the
it's
best story
since
ever
it's your
of like
favorite
being
story, I'm going to tell it. Okay, so
blissfully ignorant.
I go to take on the world, guards up, because of just two people, right? Two people that I don't even know who they are today. Okay.
Mm.
But these two people is once Chris and Liz announced that I was going to speak at Take on the World, um, more people started like watching the show and you know my show and the podcast and all this stuff and just be coming onto the social media and paying attention and saying hey and hi and shooting me messages and then I got a message that said well look if you well you know what the messages don't even matter what they said. They were just a little overzealous, right? And a little like pressure, and it wasn't Take on the World pressure, but because I assumed that it was, I went to Take on the World, guards up,
Oh.
you know. So here I am. I'm like, listen, y'all, I don't care if the earth is round or flat or a triangle or an octagon. The only thing I'm worried about is that I'm not going to fall off the edge of it while I'm doing ministry. So I don't want to talk about that. And then everyone's like, Yah and Yahweh and Yeshua and Yahweh Hamashiach. And I'm like, whoa, slow down, you know. And then I started really listening. And those guards started coming down, right? And I'm like, wow. I could feel somebody saying Yahweh. I could feel when someone spoke the name of the Son. I could feel it. And I was like, wow, this is phenomenal, right? It's the most diverse group of people that I've ever been around in one place, and the most unified group of people that I've ever been around in one place.
Wow.
And so then I'm learning about Torah and observing the Sabbath and eating clean and eating and this and that. And I'm like, oh man. So I'm at lunch. And I remember it was Tiffany and Josiah were there. And I think Mark was there. And a bunch of people were at the table, and we were all just kind of talking. And I was like, yeah, well, I got a can of Spam back in my room, and I can't wait to go chow down on my Spam. And so everyone just kind of looks at me, right? And because they knew that I wasn't trying to, like, I wasn't being malicious or anything. I was just being me, right? And Tiffany says, well, pigs are our friends, David, not our food. And I was like, yeah, well, your friends are mighty good, right? And I'm still like in you know, cutesy mode, joke mood, bro. And I'm like, no one's really laughing. They're kind of smirking like, yeah, he's cute, but, you know. And then, so I go back to my room and I ate my can of Spam, right? So the next morning, I come out of the inn, out of one of the buildings, right out of one of the it was like big houses. They had rooming houses in this little community, and I come out of there, and I had on my T-shirt. I had that T-shirt for years, right? And it was a big picture of a piece of bacon, and it said bacon. Another reason I know Jesus loves me. So I come out, right, and I start walking down the porch, and I'm just going about my business, and I wear this T-shirt at least once a week, right at that point. And so it wasn't. I didn't put it on because somebody said pigs are your friends. I just put it on because it was my T-shirt. And so one of my brothers that I love so much,
Oh my gosh,
says to me, "Really, David?" And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Come on, let's take a walk." So we took a walk down on the beach, and he was like, I just want to explain, you know, why you're going to get some kind of reaction from some people. Okay. And so he explained all about Torah and eating clean, and and I was like, oh, he's like, you don't have to go change your shirt. He's like, because you're not doing it, like you're not trying to poke anybody, it's innocent. I'm like, no, I gotta go change my shirt because it's a respect thing, right? At this point, now it's a respect thing, right? So I'm like, so I go change my shirt, and I got rid of the shirt. The shirt's gone. I destroyed it. Because now I eat clean, right? So and so that was like, I'm telling you, that was like the best thing ever to experience, because if I would have said some things that were against, like if I was at any other conference or at any other congregation, right, having a meal, and would have said something that would have offended their practices, I would have got a totally different response. But because I was with the brothers and sisters that I was with, they were like, you man, I like this dude, but that's not real funny, David.
I love the story just because of how like clueless you are. It's just like inviting like a whole bunch of Jewish people over for Easter ham. Like it cracks me up just how like blissfully like naive and all this. But the other part of the story I love is an average Christian gathering like that, there would have been wrath and scorn and insults and yelling, and no one would have asked the question like, do you realize why that, and I love the fact that because someone didn't give you the cliche answer, they were actually able to reach you and change your mind on it rather than just put a wall.
Oh man. Hey, bro. Actually, no, uncured turkey bacon is my thing.
Oh man.
Wow.
If we all pray tonight, he might forgive you for the spam. If we all collectively pray. But I don't know if he pardons the sin of spam.
Man, I was like,
that's worse.
When I said I had a can of spam in my room, I thought I was expecting somebody at the table would be like, yo, can I get some of that? Or you got two? And they were like, really?
Where do you live that people are going to be fighting over spam?
Hey, now.
Austin, Minnesota at the Spam Museum.
Yes, which is why I know how disgusting it is. You can smell it from 10 miles away.
Wow.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of
spam. Was the thing, okay?
I had never heard of it until college. And I had a roommate from Iowa, and she's like, "Hey Vic, do you want to try some spam?" And I'm like turning around ready to go, "Sure." And she's holding this chunk in her hand with like gel like dripping on her fingers, and I'm like, no, it just did not look edible. It was like straight from the can. Oh.
Oh, they got turkey spam, really, Mark?
Oh, what do they call that? Spurky? Is it spurky?
Stam. Spam-a-lope is unclean animal. LOL.
Gross.
Spam-a-lope is unclean animal and endangered too.
Oh, man.
I like that everybody is, that everybody enjoyed that, because I'm telling you, if that's it, Vicki said it right there. If that would have been anywhere else with any other issue, I would have been wrote off, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would have been
excommunicated.
Yeah, I would have. I would have been like one of those. I mean, I would have been what everyone thinks I am anyway, so a radical or something. I don't know.
Oh man!
I get that anyway, but not from my Take on the World family.
there's just so many levels of irony to me. It's not even like an I heart bacon shirt. It's like Jesus is giving it is his endorsement and everything. Like that's what's just so funny about it.
Yeah, I'm telling you. And when I think about it, right, I'm like, I cringe now. I do. I think I see a picture, like if I'm looking through older pictures, which I do quite a lot, and I come across one that I have that shirt on, I'm like, oh, Lord, I gotta pray. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, gosh, it's like not only did I like throw the swine out there, but it was like, well, how else would I know that Jesus loves me, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
I know. We all have those like secret photo albums full of us posing in front of the Christmas trees and sitting on the Easter Bunny's lap. Like we all have our forbidden family photos. Oh my gosh.
Oh wow.
The thing I really like about that story in a practical way is the person who took you aside didn't assume you were making fun of them, even after the spam conversation the night before. They genuinely cared for you and cared, like, hey, this may offend people, buddy, but you can wear it. But let's talk about it. Yeah. And we approach people like that, like not assuming that they mean wrong. And a lot of times someone says something or does something and we assume they mean the worst, when a lot of times they just might be innocently saying or doing what they are and not know it's even wrong, And so it's a good example.
Very good example.
How we just need to take them aside. And he took you aside and didn't like let you sit at the breakfast table and, David, you shouldn't be wearing that shirt, because so many people would want to chastise and show their right in front of others. But,
that meant a lot to me, Sarah. That meant a lot to me that he didn't even say, go change the shirt. He said, you don't have to change the shirt because it's not like you put it on, trying to do anything bad. He says, I just want you to know why you're going to get some of the looks or, reactions that you may get. And I want you to understand why. That's it. And that meant a lot to me, and it meant a lot to me to be able to sit at the table at lunch, and realize that, oh, they're not joking, they're serious, but they're also no different with me 30 seconds after that. They were the same. And that's not something that I've been before then. That wasn't something that I was blessed with experiencing. Sometimes you have to prep someone for the holy rollers.
It's like you always gotta tell a girlfriend when there's lipstick on her teeth. We gotta be there for each other,
I have a friend that comes up to you. Would you like to know you have a spot on your shirt? That's how she says. No.
I like that analogy better, Sarah, than lipstick on my teeth.
And I don't do that anymore. Don't tell me I have one.
Thank you, Sarah, for giving a correct analogy about a spot on my shirt instead of trying to throw the lipstick thing up in my face.
It was a generic metaphor, not directed at you. Sensitive, triggered. We triggered him.
Wow.
Oh
man. So, So, Vicki. Wow.
So quiet.
I know.
I feel like I'm about to get in trouble.
Not in this crowd.
No, definitely not in this crowd, right?
No,
They'll just pull you aside.
They'll love me to death. They'll smother me with their kindness.
Oh man, I tell you, there's just no Yeah, there's just nothing like it. And I've, and I mean, yeah, I've only been in going into ministries and congregations for 10 years, not 30, 40, 50 years like a lot of people, but I've been through a lot of ministries, a lot of congregations, a lot of groups, a lot. And there are none like this family right here. Amen. Mark says we are already the cast outs, the outcasts. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I love like when Chris and Liz they say it perfectly, that hey, you know what? We're not flat earth enough for the flat earthers. We're not Torah enough for the Hebraic roots. We're not, because we are what we are. And we don't have to take it to the extreme because all we have to do is be pleasing and acceptable unto our Lord. And but with that said, Vicki, thank you so much. I did have like this whole thing I was gonna say, and now I'm like, I don't even remember what it was. So. And I should have wrote it down.
Did you write me a rap?
Wait, hold on. No.
I would have liked that.
Actually, no. Maybe back in the day, maybe about 15 years ago, I would have. and we probably could not have said it here. But if we did, trust me, they still would have loved us.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Oh my gosh.
Groups like this are hard to find, because
They really are.
Population of the church is not accepting. So people who look different, act different, whatever, it doesn't matter. They, even though they probably fit in a lot of those categories, if you don't have that smile plastered, you don't fit in.
Yeah. I'll tell you what.
So a group like this to find is like one of those diamonds in a rough and treasures that you just
You know what gets me, and I wasn't even going to talk about this, but Sarah kind of triggered me. A couple of weeks ago, before I went on my rest period to be alone with the Father, I went up the county here in Maine. It's like northern Maine. It's very conservative, and I got to speak to a couple different groups and to a congregation and did midweek service, and so I go into a prayer group and the only reason this strikes me is because this, and I'm not saying because this pastor of this church, I believe will have me, right? He won't have me on a Sunday morning because his organization doesn't permit somebody to come in there on their Sunday morning that's not a part of their organization. However, he will have me on a midweek or like a Friday or Thursday or Friday night, and he's already told me he would. And so and I know that he will because he's not the kind of pastor that would rob somebody of a blessing. And the reason I say that is because I was walking around this sanctuary praying during their prayer group. And when I walked around the sanctuary praying, usually I run my hand along the back of the chairs and I kind of just pray over the place, right? And it's about 200, 300 chairs in this sanctuary. And I stop at these two chairs and I felt something there, something that didn't belong there. And I sat in the chairs and I binded it and I casted it out. And then I started praying for the two people that sit in them chairs. Now, I had never been in this. I don't know anything about it, right? So I'm crying. I am weeping and I'm praying for these two people. And I'm interceding. And one of the guys from the prayer group comes over and he puts his hand on me and he starts praying over me. And he says, And when I'm done, I said, Paul, who sits in these chairs? And he says, I don't know. I don't go to church here. And so we went to the pastor and we said, Pastor, I said, who sits in them chairs back there? He says, which chairs? I said, them two back there, last row, end of the row, two in front of the window. Why? Did you like feel something or something? I'm like, yeah, like something that didn't belong, and it was binded and casted out, and it's gone. I say, but whoever sits in them chairs is it's an urgent matter that we intercede for them. And he said, a mother and her transgender daughter.
Mm.
And I was like, and so everybody there that was there,
Wow.
was just blown away. I was in tears because I haven't had that, right?
Wow.
I haven't had that in a while,
Mm.
in quite a long time, and I've kind of felt like maybe it's, who knows why. No need to get into all the reasons why, right? It could be, but I know that this pastor is not the kind that's going to rob that family or that congregation of a blessing. But what Sarah has said about, so many aren't accepting, and that's the issue, is that there are so many people out there who have the power to allow, even if it's just one person in their congregation, to be blessed by allowing others to come in, whether they believe your doctrine or your theology or not, right? But there are so many out there that are robbing their congregations of their blessings because they are saying, no, because if you don't believe this, then you can't come in here. And now I've had already up in the county, up in northern Maine, a couple people from congregations, pastors from congregations that know that I am not on board with their theology, say, come on up here. I have two families in my congregation that need you. And then we also have the pastor, which we've kind of talked about this one before, Vic, that had a transgender in his congregation for 3 years.
I was wondering what had transpired with that.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They've not returned my calls. I'm making plans to go up there and to just pop up on a Sunday morning.
Good.
And just be there. But this man had a transgender in his congregation for 3 years. He knew it. His assistant knew it. Nobody else in the congregation knew it. They allowed this man, parading as a woman, to be a part of women's groups, to go on women's retreats, to go and to do everything that the women did, including take care of children. And but then the pastor gives this transgender my book. So that's the conflict for me, right? It's like, so there was he wanted something, right? Maybe he thought nothing would come of it. I don't know. But he gave this man my book. And 3 hours later, the transgender calls him and says, I read the book twice. I need to change. I know that God wants me to be the man that he created me to be. And you know what the pastor said to him? Well, hold on, slow down. We got to take baby steps here. The guy said, I want to go get my hair cut right now. He said, whoa, slow down. We have to take baby steps. We have a congregation and a community to think of.
I
Yeah.
got my own butt to think of.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And so now the man, the transgender, is still transgender. I've been on his social media and he's still transgender, and there has been no change. And so he suppressed
Mm-hmm.
and denied Yeshua.
Mm-hmm.
The pastor did,
Mm-hmm.
and completely misled and misguided that man and allowed him to remain in darkness. And that's what's
There,
going on all over this world.
you know, David, what that makes me think of, this Pharisaic spirit. I was listening to something recently, something Michael Lake was talking about, and he was talking about when Jesus healed the woman with the bleeding, and then the Pharisees came after him, like, how dare you heal on the Sabbath? That's kind of like, that's what they picked. You know, hold on a second there, just like you, right? And I've never heard any pastor point this out before, but Michael Lake was saying that woman was sick for 16 years. She was coming. How many Sabbaths did she show up asking those rabbis to pray for her and praying for healing? And then she shows up the first time and Jesus just takes care of it. And so he was pointing out the fact that he didn't just heal the woman. He pointed out the fact that those Pharisees lacked the power, because he did in 1 second what they couldn't do. 16 years they were probably praying for this woman, you know. And I just wonder if this is all speculation, but it's like
I know
Sarah said this earlier. People know when they're a project. And if this was his what's the word? His this was going to be the apex of his ministry here. I've got a transgender in my church and I'm going to lead him to the Lord, and I'm going to have this great, like, you know, arrow in my quiver. And you stole that from him, David. You did in an instant what he wanted to work up to that. He wanted to have Bible studies and pray. Yeah, you took his glory there.
somebody has said that, exactly what you said. They said, and it's not, you know, really, it's not David, but that's exactly, it's just, it's conflicting, right? It's conflicting because one little teeny tiny part of me is like, why did you give him the book?
Yeah, that's very perplexing.
You know, why did you give him the book? I mean, I don't know. It could be anything, right? But all right, so we was talking about it with a couple people, and I said, why would he give him the book? And somebody else said, well, how did he get the book? I said, well, another pastor in their pastor's group gave him the book. And so, you know, another speculation was, well, maybe he gave the guy the book because he assumed that the pastor that gave him the book knew that he had a secret. You know, that he had his secret transgender in his congregation that nobody knew about. And so he gave him the book because he didn't want it to come out that he didn't know. Oh, was that somebody? I'm sorry. I thought that was
It's hard to know.
I thought that was I don't know how to undo it. I thought it was a troll.
Savage.
And I blocked them.
The guy with the bacon shirt's blocking people, man. Just kidding.
I try to be quick on that, you know, because hey, what happened? Oh, I don't know how to unblock them. Oh well, tell them I'm sorry.
Information creation. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
I'll talk to you on Telegram, and I'm sorry I've been slow. Information. Forgive me.
Yeah, Bowman. Thanks. I'm like, I didn't know who it was. I thought it was a troll. When I see like, and don't think I'm being, I'm not even gonna say it, because I was gonna say like when I see like words that don't quite go together and make sense, I automatically block somebody because I'm like, okay, it's a robot or a troll or Oh, okay, they're back. Okay. Anyway, Vicki, Joy, Anderson.
Yes.
She's like, yeah, I'm thinking, chill.
Okay.
All right, everybody. So, go to VickiJoyAnderson.com. VickiJoyAnderson.com. And order some books. Order all of them.
Oh.
And what else? Oh, I was going to try to do something. I forget what it was. Oh, yeah. All right. So, Vicki. In private chat. Hold on. You're going to answer 3 questions.
Just for this,
Okay.
my beautiful wife.
My beautiful wife. Who said that?
Sorry.
That's Chris. That's Chris King.
Raj and I watched Chris Kane at 9:00, and I was getting Raj set up with it.
Oh,
She's cheating. She's cheating on us.
I know.
Hey, David said, "Come on for a few short minutes and go kick rock."
Okay, that's
that was
David.
Sarah.
That's a David few short minutes.
Sarah, that was 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can't blame David.
When David says 1 sec, it's a half hour. A few short minutes is at least 2 hours.
That sounds like me. I'm taking after David. Like brother, like sister, right?
What is going on back there? It's like he's okay. Yeah.
All right, now. All right, Vicki Joy.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to do something, right?
Okay. Private chat. Okay.
I have 3 Emperor's New Gender expanded editions. 3.
All right.
And I'm giving them away.
Sweet.
And not to anybody that's on the screen. If you are in the chat and not on the screen, then I'm going to ask 3 questions about Vicki Joy. And whoever answers the question gets a book.
I am going to bow out before this because I don't want to take everyone's answers. Anyway, I am gonna bow out now, but it was great to be down here with everyone again, and David, thank you for setting this up. It was a brilliant idea as always. So
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for being here.
To all of you, and have a good evening.
Thanks, Sarah. Love you guys.
You too.
Love you, Raj. Love you, Sarah.
Bye, Raj.
Blessings.
Okay, so the first question is, and Vicki, you don't even have to answer this because I already know the answer to this one.
Okay.
So the first question. Anybody in the chat? The first person to answer it in the chat gets a book. Where did Vicki and I first meet?
Good. That's a good one. Good one.
Come on, Bowman. You got to know this. That way you can win a book, and that when you're done reading it, pass it on to me. Okay.
That's a good question. I think we only might have said that once. I don't know that anyone would. Maybe.
Hey, we'll find out.
Hmm.
I know it takes there's a lag. So
Oh,
Michelle in LA.
you got it.
You
Very,
you're the watchman.
very,
That's right.
very, very
So,
specific.
Michelle in LA. Let me see. Do I have my
Colleen, you were really close. It was a conference in New York.
I'm going to put my email on the screen. So email me your mailing address and I will send you your book.
Sweet.
All right, that's number one. There's two more books to give away.
All right. I gotta get
All right.
private chat. Okay.
What do you mean what? Okay, I forget this.
I'm ready.
So you're probably saying what to something else, right? Michelle in LA, you won the book. Okay. So email me your mailing address and I'll mail you your book. Now,
Congratulations, Michelle. Sorry.
That's right.
all right. When Vicki and I were in Wisconsin, which one of our Take on the World brothers came to
Good question.
visit us?
Good question. That's a good one. I think people should be able to. Well, if people can connect disassociated dots, I think they'll get this. See how good of conspiracy theorists you guys really are. All right.
Bowman didn't hear the last part.
Okay. So then the next question for book number 2 is when Vicki and I were in Wisconsin in March, which one of our brothers from Take on the World came to visit us while we were there? We talked about it on the show afterwards. We even shared pictures.
We got good guesses. Linda, Linda was there too. We met Linda. I met Linda for the first time.
We did meet Linda. No, Linda, Vicky's dad is not the answer.
Colleen, that is such a good guess. You're thinking of when
Chris Kane.
That was when David and I were in Maine, not Wisconsin. But you're right. That is someone we met in November.
Oh no, April, not Nate.
Oh, I actually met Nate.
You met him at the
Arkansas.
Isaiah.
Arkansas in December. Was that it?
Was it the Isaiah?
What
conference.
was it? Was that the one?
I forget.
Oh, Tracy got it.
Tracy,
Woo!
you got it. Ian. It was Ian. Ian
It
and
was.
his wife drove down 4 hours to Marshville, Wisconsin to see Vicki and I. And so Tracy, you already have my email. Email me your mailing address, and I'll get a book in the mail to you.
Good work, Tracy. You got it.
Congratulations, Tracy.
Amen. So now,
Oh, that Tom Dunn, that's a great guess. I met Tom again with Dave. You know what's funny, David? All of the people that are guessing people that I met for the first time with you. Because I met Tom Dunn in Oskaloosa for the Fire and Brimstone thing. That was the first time I met him.
oh wow.
And the first time I met Chris, which Bowman guessed, was in Ohio, where you and I both were for the Spiritual Warfare Conference. Colleen was right, because Chris Kane, we met in Maine together. So it's funny, like every answer is a place that we were actually at together.
So you got stalkers because they're paying attention to you.
Yeah, I know. I know. It's great. They are attentive.
All right, now the last question. Oh man. You can come up with a question if you want.
I know. I'm trying to think of things that we've talked about that they would know. Let's see. Man. Yeah, we do get around, Tracy. At least we did last year before the whole country shut down.
Yeah. Take on the World 2020. I'm gonna be there in August. Next month in Ohio, I'll be there.
When is the date for that again?
I forget.
I'll look it up.
Like at first it was 3 days and now it's 2 days. Because it's been changed and to a new location and all that. And I don't have all that information, so I don't know. Maybe, I don't even know if I'm supposed to be talking. So I'm not gonna talk about it no more.
Okay. I'll go ask them. I had heard mentions of a.
Yeah, well, it is going to be online, but it's also not going to be online. So
Gotcha.
I don't know how it's going to work yet. But I'll let everybody know. Who does Vicki write for? A good one. I feel like the bridesmaid at the wedding.
You're gonna get conked in the face with the book. I actually was thinking of the same question as Bowman, so that's a good one, and lots of people should know that one.
It's a good one, but it's not a good one. It's a good question, but it's not a good one because a lot of people know because they've been on your website. True,
but it's something we've actually talked about on the show, though, so people would actually have access to the answer.
Okay.
And there's more. Actually,
we're not going to ask that question.
Actually, well, I don't know if we've ever mentioned it on the show. There's someone else I'm writing for that it's not even on my website yet. I don't know if I've mentioned it though.
New book?
No, I'm doing a monthly column in an online magazine, but I don't know that anyone would know it. I don't know that I've ever mentioned it, and unless you were actually receiving the online magazine, I don't know that anyone would know. So it might be a little too much on the inside, maybe.
Oh, okay. All right, here you go.
I'm waiting. I'm listening.
All right, that's all right. You can play, Mark, because that's not going to be the question. All right, so the question is, What kind of music did Vicki grow up listening to?
Okay, we've talked about that. People should know this. Boing.
What type of music did Vicki Joy grow up listening to? What was her choice of music? Colleen! I should have said Colleen can't guess this,
Oh, of
but
course,
you got it,
Colleen.
Colleen.
Colleen knows.
You get the next book. My email's on the screen. Send me your April's here too. Hey April. Send me your mailing address and I will get it in the mail to you. And Spandau Ballet. What?
Michelle, how'd you know?
I don't even know what that is.
Colleen, in for the slide.
All
See,
right.
I got all my friends planted in the audience.
And so
they
if
know.
you have already I know. That's how they do it. So if you have already won, you can't answer this last question.
I want to know why one of my best friends doesn't already have my book.
Yeah, talk about that.
Getting clean. Ooh, gosh.
So now,
Silly songs with Larry. Oh gosh. Oh, where is my hairbrush?
Silly songs with Larry. I never even heard of these things.
It's a VeggieTales. Oh, Barbara Manatee, Manatee.
Okay, so I know I said 3 questions, 3 books, but now we have a special question for Transforming Prayer.
All right.
It's a 31-day prayer walk for your LGBTQ loved one.
Sweet.
But it has to be a good question. So, what color toenail polish? No. No.
Hey, I love it.
All right.
What doesn't Vicki listen to? You're not all that far from the truth, Jason.
All right. So, the last question for the last book is coming.
You know how he was making fun of me earlier for being organized and writing things down before a show?
Yeah. See, yeah, but yeah, anyway.
Yeah, moving on.
That's what makes us so fantastical, right? Is that
That's right.
Do that stuff. We don't do none of that responsible stuff.
This is actually much more entertaining than just reading them.
Yeah, for everybody else, right?
Yeah.
Thinking like, oh man, really?
Oh,
all right.
gosh.
So the question is, what was Vicki's last job?
Ooh.
Source of income.
Do you know, David? Did I talk about that?
I think.
Okay.
Hold on.
I don't know if did I ever mention it on the show?
I put it.
Colleen,
I don't know.
oh, Colleen knows. Oh gosh.
Well, Colleen, you can't answer. You already won a book.
Oh, that's right.
I put it in the private chat.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Ooh,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
yeah.
No, I thought after that. Wow, I must have been like thinking about somebody else.
Yeah. No, you're right. Like that was like
But wasn't that after that?
no, it was all the kind of the same job.
Oh, okay. I didn't.
Yeah. No. Yep. You're right.
The mouse at Chuck E. Cheese.
I wish. Oh.
Hey there.
Oh man. I don't know if I ever talked about this. I'm not sure. It was
Okay, you know what? So like you don't have to know what she did, but how about where?
okay, maybe.
Because we've talked about that.
Have we? Okay. All right. Huh. I don't know. I think I'll be really impressed if anyone can pull this out of the hat.
Oh man, you need to get a job at Chuck E. Cheese.
I wouldn't mind doing that. Being up on the
Walmart greeter.
play. Oh yeah, I'm the most gregarious. I would be like, oh, can you imagine me like, take your own cart. Your arms aren't broken.
Oh man.
Ah.
Awesome, Tracy. You deserve a book.
I know. Tracy, read my mind.
Tracy already won. She can't win again. But Tracy, I am gonna well, you'll just have to see. I'm not telling you nothing. All right, look, it's like 9:30. Somebody needs to answer this.
Come on, man. I know I've talked about like old jobs. I don't know.
2 year minimum, April? Maximum, I mean, okay. There you go.
Oh yeah.
Wow. A 2 beer minimum. Okay. Now let's ask a different question. Okay, so that canceled. Yeah. That question is now canceled.
Okay, canceled.
All right, because it was, well, we're not even going to tell you what it was. If you don't know, you don't need to know.
Oh, jeez, man.
You don't know, now you don't know.
Tough guy.
All right, come on now. I need a good one. When not this book. It's all right, Tracy, because you're going to get one of these books too.
Teacher's pet.
You're going to get the transforming prayer as well. So
that's not all. If you you'll also get. If you order now, you will also get. He's got an old football phone from the 1980s. He's going to throw in there.
Oh man. Okay.
This is pathetic. This shows how much like personal information I've actually given out in almost a year. This is sad. Ugh.
All right. So,
gosh,
where does Vicki Joy live?
Oh, you'll know that. Come on. This one's to the fastest typist. thru knives.
Thru Knives is not a place. Well, I'm sorry if you identify it as a place, then maybe it is. Thru Knives matter.
Thru knives matter. Oh gosh.
Oh man. In
Okay, yeah.
the
You gotta narrow that down.
Kentucky, no. A 2 bourbon minimum.
Can you tell by my accent?
Wisconsin,
Oh,
no.
Brandon.
Sorry,
Missed it by that much.
I need a city.
I thought this would be easy because I was harping on it
Mark.
recently.
Not where should she reside, but where
In a house. On a good day, Brandon. On a good day. J Dubs in the house.
Come on, John. I said I need a city, not a state.
Oh, come on. No, I don't think anyone would know the city. Do you know the city?
St. Paul? No.
Nope. I don't know if anyone would know the city because I usually just say the biggest suburb.
Oh yeah, Minneapolis. We got to give it to John because John said Minnesota.
Yeah, he's got it, man.
Minnesota. Yeah.
Minnesota. Yeah.
Oh, before we end the show, you got to tell about when your Minnesota friend was in Philly and y'all were at the Chipotle.
This is the best story ever. Oh my gosh. So
okay, hold on. So John, email me your mailing address and I'll mail you the book. All right, go ahead, Vicki.
So I've lived all over the place. I was born in Minnesota. I moved around. I'm back now. But so I was working at GMAC during the whole subprime mortgage crash. I was there in doing operations management in like the appraisal department and just, living the good life, right? And so at one point, all of the Minneapolis offices folded. We're going into BK court and all that. So I got offered, you can keep your job if you go to the headquarters in Fort Washington, Pennsylvania. And I actually grew up a little bit in Philly. So I was like, okay, I'll go. So I was in Pennsylvania. And ironically, my closest friend out there was a single girl who had also relocated from Indiana. And she was actually a lesbian. And my friend, a friend of mine from Minneapolis, flew out one weekend to visit. So my friend from Minneapolis, my friend from Indiana, and I all went to Chipotle. So we get there, and my friend from Minnesota orders her burrito bowl, and she says, no beans. Okay, no beans. So they take this like huge industrial sized metal spoon and just just smothers her bowl with beans, and she's mortified, and she's like, no beans, and he's like, and another like huge, and she's like mortified, and me and my friend Amanda are dying laughing. And so my Minnesota friend still said, she says a third time, no beans, and the guy's like picking up the scoop, and my friend Amanda reaches over and puts her hand on him, and he's like, I'm sorry, she's from Minnesota, she's saying no beans.
It was in Philly. He thought she was saying
no beans, but she was saying no beans. And, I don't have a lot of friends that have really thick Minnesota accents. Unfortunately, you can hear the accent the most predominantly when we say Minnesota, because there's the long O in Minnesota. So I'll say Minnesota, but there are people here that'll say like Minnesota, like it's crazy. But this particular friend, one time I'd been living out of state for a couple of years and we were on the phone. And for the first time, I really realized how thick her Minnesota accent was. And so I was just like, dude, you have the worst Minnesota accent I've ever heard in my life. And I swear this is a direct quote. She goes, no, I don't. It was horrible, which is why I will often tell people I'm from Minneapolis, because I just can't. I'm too thin-skinned to have people laugh hysterically at me every time I say Minnesota, and then they laugh at me because I did my long O, but.
Oh my gosh! All right.
Yeah.
So
Mo beans.
wow. All right. So I gotta show everybody my new T-shirt again. Yeah, because black flies matter. Yes, they do. And I'll tell you what, I'm beat.
5 scoops later.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
done. I ain't got nothing. I'm
Her-
beat.
her 10-pound bowl.
Oh man! Wow.
Oh gosh.
All right. So, Vicki Joy, it's been a joy, and
Mutual.
it's been real, and it's been nice, and it's even been real nice at times. And we love you, and we're going to miss you. Yes, Michelle, much better than that bacon T-shirt. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Oh man.
Wow. All right. So
Yeah, you're right, JW.
thank you for that piece of information, John. But I'm tired and I'm going to bed. It was probably about 5:30, 5:45 that I was like, oh man, I'm getting ready to go to bed. And then I was like, oh, tonight's Tuesday. I got to do dry bones.
Oh man.
So, yeah. Anyway, happy trails, Vicki, says Linda. Jason says, gonna miss you, Vicki. Love you, sis.
Oh, thank you guys.
Always a joy with Vicki.
Oh. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, it's been amazing. And I'm overjoyed for Vicki Joy. That she's going to focus on what Yah has put before her. And you know, I think that we all need to start doing that. We all need to start focusing more on what Yah gives us to do. I sent out a message that some social medias, like we are only, or I made some announcements. I don't know what I did, but I put it out there. We're only on YouTube and Facebook. That's it. And the website, of course. But, we have to start getting rid of distractions. We're at a point and at a time when we need no extra distractions, because the enemy, there's enough distractions. We hear, look, we're all hearing voices, right? And the voices that we're all hearing, there's many of them. And the enemy is going to continue to try to speak to us. And we don't need any distractions. That's it. I'm going to start focusing on getting a home together for people to go into, because they need a safe place. And I love the way April put it. They need a sanctuary from the storm. And that's what they need. And they don't need to come into this home for change or to be changed. They just need to come in to be introduced to the one who can make them whole, right? And that's what it's going to be all about. It's all about establishing relationships and building relationships. And I think and this is the first time I'm saying it. I've written it down in some notes that I'm putting together for a little presentation for this home, but this is the first time I'm actually speaking it, and this is going to be a home that a homosexual can come into and know that it's okay if they don't change. Because it's all about trying to fill the void. The void is the intimacy, that broken intimacy that we're all designed with. We're all designed with this desire for intimacy. I'm not going to even get into it because we'll be here till 11 o'clock. But the absolute only thing that I feel I'm supposed to be doing is helping them see what true intimacy is and establishing a relationship. That's it. This home is going to be evangelizing and discipling. That's our call. That's our commission. Our commission is twofold: evangelize, disciple, and that's what this is going to be all about. The ministry evangelizes, and the home will be for discipling. But it's not a place where we're going to put people and say, you're here to change. You can't be a homosexual. Now, you can be anything you want to be. You can be anything you want to be. But I guarantee you, once they're introduced to Yeshua, Jesus the Christ, to the one who can make them whole, they won't want to be broken anymore. And I think that we don't see it like that. We think we're supposed to run out and change. You know, the church is so focused on going out and reaching people and saving people and preaching to people. And we better start getting focused on getting out there and trying to establish relationships with those who don't look like us, who don't believe what we believe, who don't go to church, who don't go to worship, who don't even read the Bible. Those are the people we need to be establishing relationships with. I'm done. Vicky's done too, by the way.
I'm done for real.
She's done for real. And Holly is done too, because she's like, yeah, well, of course I'm done, because y'all haven't shut up in the past 45 minutes.
This is what we do. Oh, man.
Usually
Thanks for hopping on, Holly.
Like
yeah, thank you for letting me come on. I really appreciate it. And plus, I didn't want to miss an opportunity to wish you well and success in all your endeavors. But yes, Vicki, you're going to be sorely missed.
Thank you. Love you.
I love you too, Vicki. And anytime you want to take a break, you just hop on to YouTube. We'll be here ready and waiting for you.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I'll be back.
Make sure you check with me and make sure that, you know, I can squeeze you in.
Okay. Okay. Man. See? Like the mama bird kicking me out of the nest.
It's time to fly, Vicki Joy.
Get your own food.
Amen. Love you, Vicki. Hey, guys.
Love you too.
Love you guys. Love you, Holly. Thanks for coming. Thank you, Sarah. And didn't somebody else come on?
Sarah and Bonnie.
Bonnie. Yeah,
Bonnie.
I know somebody else came on. Who came on?
Yeah, she
Bonnie, thanks
real quick.
for coming on.
Yes.
And, thank you guys. Love you guys. And Lord willing, I will see y'all in the morning, and I'll see you next Tuesday on Drier Bones without Vicki Joy.
Dead dry.
Did dry.
Did dry.
The driest. It's like literally almost 3 hours, so we're out.
Whew.
Love you guys.